welcome back to my channel and welcome to part 3 of the How to Make a Junk Journal series. Today we are going to cover the books that we have put together with different materials to make it look nice, and we're also going to cover the inside with something pretty. So let's get started. We're going to start with this book here because this one will take a little bit less time. I have this leather, and this is just a scrap of leather. I got it from Michael's. There's like a big bag of scrap leather, and so this is where that came from. And it's a lot cheaper than going out and buying a bunch of different kinds of leather. So I got that bag, and there's different colors, you know, browns, different black shades. So it's actually a pretty neat little scrap pack. So what we're going to do is I'm going to cover this spine with a piece of the leather. And what I'm going to do is cut the leather so that it is about just past where I have my muslin sitting. We're going to literally just glue this piece on. I've cut it as straight as possible. If it's not perfect, it's okay. It's not that big a deal. And I promise you, nobody will even notice. So we're going to go ahead and glue this on, and I will be back to show you what I'm going to do to the inside. Okay, so once we've gotten it glued on where we want it, the next thing we're going to do is take our bone folder again and just run it along the fabric. This is going to be a little bit more tricky with the leather because it's not like your normal fabric. So what I will do is just take the bone folder like this and just kind of run it along the creases just to make sure that it still folds correctly. But that is part of the reason why we work from the outside in. I have tried to cover the inside and then the outside, and it kind of stiffens the book somehow. So I would just advise to start from the outside, work your way to the inside. Okay, so this is what I was talking about in the last video. So since we covered this with a thicker fabric, there was no way for me to pull that into the inside and cover this area right here. So you could leave it like that. Most people don't look at books this way. I'm just a slight perfectionist, so I look at that. But what I might do is I might just paint around here, just on the edge. Okay, this is my plan for the inside. So I had these papers from the book. I went ahead and ripped them out because I decided that I was going to use them for something else. So this is cool. I'm going to cover the spine area and just actually a little over the spine, just like we did on the outside, so that I can cover up where it creases. And I'm going to do that on both sides. I'm going to just cut out a little strip here, the length of my book. And I'm going to take these pages, which were the front and back pages of the book, and I'm going to cover this area here just like that. So it's going to look something like this. And when we, well, you know, I'm going to actually cover that part up too. So when we bind the book, when we get to that point, what's going to happen is our pages are going to fall right here, and you're not really going to see this paper. So it doesn't really matter what you put in the middle. Like I said, am a perfectionist, and when I flip through the pages, I see the paper in the back. So if it doesn't match to me, it's wrong. So I picked out a dark piece of paper because I think I am going to paint on the edges here just to cover that up. So let's go ahead and get our paper cutter out, and we'll go ahead and make a strip of paper to fit along the inside spine. We're going to cut it 4 inches by just under 8.5. Okay, so I've gotten my paper cut down to the size of the book, and just a little bit more than the size of the inner spine. I wanted to mention that I could technically just leave this as it is. Once I put the spine down, I'll have the same color end papers. So you could leave it like that, but I think it just looks nice if you cover that paper or fabric or whatever you're using. Okay, so all I'm going to do is the same process we've been doing every time we put paper or fabric down. I'm just going to glue this down, and then I'm going to run my bone folder over it. So I will be right back, and we will go ahead and put these pages on. Okay, so when you're running the bone folder over paper, it's going to be a little bit trickier because it could potentially rip on you if you dig too deep into the creases. So what you really want to do is just barely push on the creases, just enough that it actually goes in there and pulls the paper over a little bit. I have made that mistake a lot. Okay, so now that our book is dry, we're just going to fold it up, make sure everything folds up correctly, and we can go ahead and start with our end papers. So I've cut these papers down to the length of the inside of the book. So if you'll notice that these pages do not reach the edge of the book, I just go to maybe 1/4 of an inch in from the edge of the book. And I do that on all 3 edges. And I did the same thing with this page. So all we're going to do is glue these down, and this will be pretty much complete. Okay, so I've got my end papers glued down. If you plan on using book pages to cover the inside of your book like I did, you're probably not going to want to run the bone folder over them just yet. The thinner the paper you use, the longer you want to wait before you use this. Because as soon as you go over it, it could just tear completely through your page and you'll have to do this all over again. So I'm going to let this sit for just a moment before I actually run the bone folder over it, but let's go ahead and get started on the next book. So I just want to mention about this book. We're probably not going to do this one today. It's a very large book and it would be hard to cover with paper. My plan is to paint this book, and I'm not going to do that on camera, but I will tell you exactly how I plan on doing that. This is like a fabric cover. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is cover this with gesso, just to give myself a little bit of a smoother canvas. And then after I gesso it, then I can go over it with whatever color paint or, you know, whatever I plan on doing with this later. If you do want to see how I paint my books, then just let me know in the comment section below, and I will make sure I make a video of that. Okay, so for this book, I have already cut out the paper that I want to use to cover the outside of the book. And what I've done is the book is about 5.5 by 8.5, I believe. So what I've done is I have cut my paper 6 inches by 10 inches. And that is because I want to be able to wrap my paper around the cover. So I'm going to start with the cover paper, and then I'm going to glue down the spine paper. The spine is 2.5 inches, so I have cut my paper 4.5 inches, and I have just cut the length of the book, which is 8.5 inches. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to leave the muslin showing right here on the edge, and I'm also going to leave the muslin as it is on the inside of the book. So let's go ahead and glue the cover paper down. can go ahead and flip the book over, and the next thing I want to do is cut the corners of the book off. So you're not going to want to cut all the way up against the book cover because this little corner will show and you won't have any paper covering it. So I'm going to cut just a little bit further back from the book cover and cut off this corner here. And then I'm going to do the same thing for all the other 3 corners. At this point, we can go ahead and start folding up our corners. Doesn't really matter which corner you start with. We're going to cover this up on the inside as well. Okay, once we get all the edges folded up, we can go ahead and start gluing them. So now we can go ahead and put the paper that we want to put on the inside covers in. At this point, if you wanted to cover the spine, I would advise doing that first. And we can go ahead and glue these down, and that will finish off this book. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that video. Thanks for watching. Bye.